ahead.
So, hello guys. Today we have with us an Argentinian journalist. Argentina is a country which I love so much. After India, it's the country which I like to talk about and I like to follow in football due to Leo, Diego, Angel Di Maria, Sergio Aguero, and all those greats. I like to follow Argentina. And to ask questions about Argentina, we have with us today Mr. Santiago Bauza. I'm sorry if I butchered the name, but he's from
Oh, you
Copenhagen.
didn't. You
Ali.
actually nailed it. You really,
Wow.
really nailed it. You're
Thank you.
one of the
Thank you.
first people I ever spoken to that nailed it.
Wow.
So,
Wow. I basically I saw a lot of your videos from Copa 90, right? You had the 55-minute Boca River Derby match. I'm not kidding. It's the best movie in the history of, well, not even footballing cinema. It's my favorite movie of all time. Full stop. I love it so much. So that's why
oh,
I have
praise man.
called people like you to talk about Argentinian football because I really love the country there so much about the aguante, with the fans, and all the passion they put into the clubs. So how's it going with Copa 90 as of now?
Well, to be quite honest, I haven't really done stuff with Copa 90 since the pandemic hit, basically. Last thing I did with them was a small documentary about the Verón family and their legacy at the Estudiantes. There's the first one, Ramon Verón, who was a historic player from the 1960s who won the Intercontinental Cup for them against Manchester United. Matt Busby's team, actually. He
Wow.
scored a winner in that game. Then, of course, his son, Juan Sebastian, who is probably one of the biggest legends in the history of the club. He's had a successful career in Europe and also won the Copa Libertadores and reached the FIFA Club World Cup final against Barcelona in 2009. Now he's the vice chairman, and he was a few years ago chairman of the club.
Which club? Can you
At
repeat the name?
the Estudiantes de La Plata.
Estudiantes. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
I've noticed that in Argentina you don't pronounce the S's because I've seen a lot of Messi interviews and he neglects the S's a lot, especially
Yeah.
from someone from Rosario, I guess. They neglect the S word a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind
Yeah.
of our
So
difference with other
Estudiantes.
Spanish figures. Yeah. And then he also has Juan Sebastian has a son called Dayan, who is right now, just coming up in the first team. So it's kind of like the three generation of Verons playing for Estudiantes. That's the last thing I did for Copa 90. Then right after that hit the pandemic, hit basically, and I haven't done a lot of work with them ever since. I've done other stuff, but not really with Copa 90.
Oh, the pandemic hit us really bad. It did all of football. It just destroyed football. I feel no fans, nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially
But
and
hopefully
yeah,
coming back to normal
yeah.
in a sense, I would say. But yeah,
Are the
hopefully.
crowds back to normal in Argentina?
Yeah, they've been so since about September, October from last year. They are now to 100%, although you always have to put an asterisk on crowds in Argentina because I don't know if you know this, but since 2014, there can be no away fans in Argentinian
Yeah,
crowds.
of course I
So
know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's due to the
so
Super Classico, isn't it?
yeah,
Super Classico.
that's the thing. I mean, when you talk about normality in crowds in Argentina, you always have to do it with a with an asterisk because I mean, for me at least, until the away fans are back and we can have a game with both teams represented, I don't think we'll ever get to normalcy. So
So, but isn't it really completely different to have only the home fans of one team? So their stadium becomes like a fortress with 100% capacity of only one team. That must be really scary because wherever you
I
go,
mean,
there's just
yeah.
people booing you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the animosity one team feels towards the other, but yeah, the thing is, it is more threatening, I would say, for the visiting team, and also, it's something a little bit, political in a way because most smaller teams would be very much in favor of having away fans because they will feel like fans from bigger teams will probably contribute to filling up the stadium,
Yeah.
while teams like Boca, River Independiente, Racing, maybe they wouldn't really consider having away fans because they are sure that they will fill up the stadium every single time. So
Yeah,
it's something of a awkward
disadvantage.
situation with the away fans.
Yeah, totally. Also, speaking of Independiente, Racing, or I even know San Lorenzo and Huracan, right? Can you highlight a bit more about the
Yeah.
rivalries? Like, where did it start, and why is Buenos Aires so toxic in terms of football? I love how much the fans hate each other.
Yeah, I would say that Buenos Aires is not just the epicenter of all things football, but also in a kind of like the way this country is run and the economy is so centered around Buenos Aires that it's so exaggerated. I would say the dominance of Buenos Aires above the rest of the country in football. There's a whole pyramid that first and second division, of course, that are nationwide. But from there, the pyramid splits into two, which is one half of it that is entirely consisting of teams in Buenos Aires,
Yeah,
and the other one from the teams from the rest of the country, which is much more messy and maybe not as much, not so much.
developed.
Yeah, it has
Developed.
a little bit less quality as well. So even when you consider that, I mean, I think it's been too centered around Buenos Aires. Maybe you could say that some other provinces have been a little bit neglected in the sense, and that also, of course, has caused a lot of rivalries to happen. But I would say though that some of the more toxic rivalries, as you said before, may even be found outside of Buenos Aires, especially the one in Rosario between Newell's and Rosario Central, which is a city in Santa Fe that is notoriously dangerous, even because there's unfortunately there's been so many drug wars around there, and have been, of course, associated with both of those teams. There have been some real shows of violence between both of the sets of fans. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, you can find a lot of really difficult rivalries in Buenos Aires. Lanús and Banfield is a really intense one. Estudiantes and Gimnasia, but I would say,
right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think you will find nothing like the one in Rosario. That's some brutal stuff there.
I know.
Stuff.
Even I have seen videos where the stadium is filled only in the training period, right? When they're training, the stadium's filled and they're chanting against them. I mean, that's so beautiful. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
That's what we want in India. But our country is, too big to have derbies. We basically have many teams from smaller parts, and now the national league is privatized. It's not by the FA. It's also run by a big company. So it will be like more like the MLS, you can say, and it's not run so well. So one of my friends and I, we talk so much about Argentinian football. It's our dream to go there and watch the Super Clasico. Yeah. So about speaking of the Super Clasico, I know where it started, but can you again repeat how it started for our fans?
It's a funny story actually, because well, you will surely have seen this in the documentary about the derby for Copa 90, but Boca and River were actually founded really, really close to each other in the same neighborhood of La Boca. But and that's basically how the rivalry started, because they were neighbors in a way. But then River moved uptown to the neighborhood of Núñez, which was, I would say, at that time more upper class than La Boca. And back then, supporting River or supporting Boca became something of issue, I would say, something that I think those lines have blurred in the last few decades. It's not so pronounced anymore. You will find people from all kinds of from all kinds of upbringing supporting either River or Boca. I think they've become just way too big. I wouldn't be much off to say that. I would say that 40% of the country supports Boca, 40% of the country supports River, and the other 20% supports every single other team in Argentina. That's how dominant Boca and River are all over the country. So the thing is, it's a robbery that's been fed at first by class, but then by the success and the reach of those teams. It's something that they've been, how can I say this? I'm thinking of a word, but I can't.
They're battling it out, you mean?
Exactly. They've been battling it out. They've been, feeding themselves with feeding each other, I would say, not just from the rivalry itself, but also success. They have different stages of success for each team. They've been so dominant for many years. They've had, of course, their ups and downs. Boca had some serious economic problems in the late 80s, and River, of course, got relegated in 2011.
Oh my God. Yeah. They
So
made
you
a
can
chant
imagine-
over it. That is the thing I saw where they talked about the Monumental burning down. That was wow. Teasing the team just for that.
And now you also have River fans, taunting Boca fans every single time for that Libertadores final in 2018, claiming that Boca have been dead ever since.
Yeah.
So
That must
so
have been
yeah,
lovely.
bragging rights have been so give and take between those teams, which I would say it makes it for the ones who support non-Boca and River teams an unbearable atmosphere, because you have fans taunting each other every single time, and the media which won't shut up about Boca and River, about every single little issue in their dressing room or whatever's going on, which leaves no
Other
time
teams
about the rest
ignored.
of the teams.
Yeah. Totally.
Even the big ones like Independiente and Racing and Cervantes, they get no love, man.
I mean,
It's all Boca River.
Even their derby is so beautiful. I've seen they're just 2 blocks away, right, from each other. The stadiums, the Il Cilindro and the one. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's a great derby. Yeah, it's got a lot of history as well. Two teams that have also been, at different times, at different measures, I would say, incredibly successful. But yeah, that's the thing. For example, with something that has come recently, which is the Clásicos weekend, which is when every single Clásico is played at the same weekend. That means that Boca River gets all of the attention, and huge derbies like the Clásico de Avellaneda or the Clásico de Rosario, the Clásico de La Plata get no love because there's the Super Clásico.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's a very good selling point. I mean, they can market. If you want to market Argentina, then it's a really great idea, because people will come to see 5 derbies. Even when Copa 90 advertised about the derby in Argentina, I was like, I have to visit this place. I have to. And does this happen every year? Will there be a weekend with all derbies soon, or is it once in a lifetime and it's pretty rare?
I think, it's something that comes up every once in a while, because the format of the tournament changes every single year, which is draining, to be honest. It's draining, it's really tiring, and you have no sense of organization if the format of the tournament changes every single year. Sometimes you will get a derby weekend, sometimes you get another idea, which I like even better, which is a derby every single weekend, a different derby every single weekend, which I think I would prefer that, because if you have a Clásico Rosario, you can focus on that Clásico, and then the other one, and then maybe when Boca River comes, you will give all your attention to Boca River, but other Clásicos also get their chance to shine, But yeah, I mean, sometimes it is like this. Sometimes we have derby weekends. Sometimes we just have a normal fixture. It changes every single year, and I can't really tell you what's going to happen next year, if we're going to have more teams, if we're going to have relegation, which we haven't had since 2019. Which is crazy.
Really? Which is just plain wrong.
No team has been relegated from the national championship since 2019, and it a little bit has to do with the fact that back then Gimnasia were managed by Diego Maradona, and they were doing really, really poorly. They were going down, and people thought back then that
you can't relegate El Diego.
Yeah, which is, I mean, to be honest, a little bullshit, because
that's not how football works, does it? Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, and then a few months later, the pandemic happened, the tournament got suspended, and then Diego died. So yeah,
respect. Also, even in India, I mean, let me tell you our format, so you will also know a bit more. So first we had the I League, okay, which started around the MLS era. MLS 1994 approximate. That's where our I League started. and then we had the league till 2014. Okay. Then some oligarchs paid money to the national FA, okay, to make another league, but owned by them and the FA together. And that league suddenly became the new important thing. And
The Premier League.
the Premier League, yeah. The FA told us that they won't relegate the old league because they can't just do that. It will be, the old league will be the league and the new one will be like the FA Cup. But suddenly they started focusing too much on this new one. And now suddenly they have turned this into the A and this into the I League, the old one into the B. And now they have to fight unnecessarily to get a spot. But it doesn't end there. They have to pay money, the lower leagues right now, to get into the upper league. They have to pay a franchisee fee, even though they have come first, second, third, and even represented us in Asia. And that's just selfish. So now they're going to introduce, after a few years, promotion, and they're hoping to join the league. But the first
so right now it's kind of like in Mexico, where in order to get promoted, you have to meet some certain economic standards, and you have to spend this much money to get promoted, or otherwise you will stay in the second division.
That's the opposite of equalizing. They are not even allowing the ones who with merit to come up. Also, speaking of bad formats, what's up with the Clausura and the Apertura? I didn't understand any of it.
So that's a thing of the past right now. That was back in the 90s and the 2000s and up until the mid 2010s, which is you would have the season split into two tournaments, each of them with 19 games each. You will have two champions per year. You have two short tournaments. That's how it would work. You have the champion of the Apertura and the champion of the Clausura, and then by the end of the season, you will have two champions. By the early 2010s, in the latter stages of that format, you would have something of a super cup between the winners of the Apertura and the Clausura, and then you would be determined. You would determine the champion of that season, which in itself didn't get a lot of value because the fans will always value the performance throughout the league, so they will value more the champions of the Apertura and the Clausura, which on the one hand you had a lot of different champions, but on the other, they didn't carry a lot of merit because you could have a great streak of games that would be enough for you to win the championship.
Oh yeah. Also, no, I thought this sounded like not that bad a format. I was talking about the new format. I thought that was the Clausura Apertura, the one which is into two tables. Yeah. What's that? It's really weird.
Oh yeah. The current format actually, to be honest, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because right now, this is something like a League Cup, what we're playing right now in the first half of the season, but at the same time, it counts as a national championship, which, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So, the league is split into two groups. The top four of the different groups will go into a playoff, and then the winner of that playoff will be, of course, the champion of the League Cup. But then the second half, it's a normal league table which lasts for this half season, and at the end of the year, we will get two relegations. Finally.
Okay. Yeah, you need the relegations totally. You do need the relegations. Else, how will there be promotion, right?
Yeah, the thing is, we have 28 teams on the table right now, which is way too much, and it also made the league like really uncompetitive. You have a lot of teams that really do not have enough quality, and they're not at the right standard to be playing first division football. Teams that have been, really, really, really underachieving in the last few years, and at this point they should be relegated.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they have not done enough for that to happen. There have been a lot of disputes with some chairman these small teams who are, of course, won't want their teams to be relegated, and the economic hardships that can come from that. So yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but here we are.
I think most teams want to stay in the first division so that they can play against Boca and River and get the money, because Boca and River is where the advertising is, right? If I'm right.
Factor, of course.
So basically, you have the A, then you have the Division B, La B, and then after that, what do you have down the pyramid?
Yeah, I said before, it splits into two. On the one hand, you have the teams that are directly affiliated to the AFA, which are like
Argentina.
95% teams from Buenos Aires, which is the B Metropolitana, the third division, the C, the fourth one, and then the D. The C is the final division, which is professional, and the fifth one, the D, it's entirely composed of amateur teams, which is of course you know, the lowest of the low. And then on the other hand, you will have the divisions of teams that are not directly associated with AFA, which are like from all over the country, and which its divisions are much bigger in size, like the Torneo Federal A, which is the third one, Federal B, which is the fourth one, and the C, which is the fifth one, which of course it consists of like, I don't know, 30-40 teams at one point. And then you have the regional
Federal and Metropolitano. It's the metropolitan and rural. It's like that.
Like federal, yeah.
Also, what are the teams which are not in Rosario, Buenos Aires, and maybe La Plata? Can you name some teams? I never knew any of the teams.
Well, in Rosario, of course, is in Santa Fe, and there's the capital of that province, which is Santa Fe, which has a big derby in Colón and Unión, for example.
Yeah, I know Talleres.
Yeah, that's in Córdoba.
In
Córdoba, Talleres, Belgrano, who are relegated, Instituto.
Oh, they're relegated now. Okay.
Who are also in the second division. Really great rivals, the three of them. You also have a big team also in Buenos Aires who have been in the second division for a long time in Ferro, who are big rivals of Vélez Sarsfield, but they haven't faced each other in so much time because Vélez have been so successful in the last 30 years and Ferro have been, you know, in the second division. So there's a big rivalry between them. You also have teams like Godoy Cruz in Mendoza, who have been historically a really small team, but they got promoted in 2008 and they have never been relegated since.
Yeah. Also, I think Vélez Sarsfield is the one with Thiago Almada, right? Who went to the MLS.
Well, not
now.
anymore. Not anymore. He's just left to Atlanta United. But Vélez have been in the last few years very good at you know, developing players. Right now, well, they have some economic hardships, which means that the team is like almost 80 to 90% consisting of academy products, many of whom are like aged 22 and under. But which means that we'll probably get a lot of playtime and some opportunities to develop as well. So you might look at the next, you know, the next great Argentine exports coming from Vélez, especially somebody like Luca Orellano. Keep an eye on him. He's good.
Okay. I think I know Valentino Barco in Boca and a few others.
Valentin Barco, yeah.
Yeah, he is also rated. Also, I thought the academy was Racing, right? La Academy. I thought they were the ones who produced.
Yeah.
Lautaro.
No. Actually, La Academia, I think, is something of a nickname most associated with their origins and the fact that they were, you know, not exactly the fact that they produce players, but from their origins of the team itself. But I would say if there's one team in Argentina that's like famous for the development they made, is Argentinos Juniors.
Oh, Maradona came from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, not just Maradona. You're talking about Sorín, and Cambiaso, and Fernando Redondo. You know, there are a lot of, well, even right now you've got Alexis McAllister in Brighton.
Yeah.
Okay. He also came from Argentinos Juniors. But yeah, they call themselves the hotbed of football.
They are like they are in the heart of BA, right? They're in the heart of Buenos Aires, I feel.
Yeah, they're in a neighborhood called La Paternal. It's great because it's a stadium that's almost hidden within that neighborhood. You know, you just walking around, you see like houses, and then all of a sudden, bam, there comes the stadium. It's right there. You almost don't see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a nice little stadium actually. I've been there a couple of times. It's a nice little place to be.
Also, I think I saw Apache. It's about Carlos Tevez on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fuerte
Yeah.
Apache. Yeah. I think
Yeah, that's
Lanús is in that area, right? Or is Argentinos there itself?
I think that's no, Lanús is in the outskirts of Buenos Aires. They're in the south of the capital city, I would say. Fuerte Apache is it's probably one of the poorest places in Buenos Aires. It's something of a slum with a lot of housing projects. It's also the place where Thiago Almada came through, actually.
Yeah, I know. I heard that.
So yeah, it happens a lot that actually a lot of some of Argentina's more some of Argentina's greater players actually come from really really humble
backgrounds, yeah,
origins, because it's the way to provide for the families and try to get themselves a better life and a better shot at a better life by trying to excel at football and maybe get a good move elsewhere, and in that way trying to impose in Argentina for some players. And sometimes that also can carry some difficult consequences for players who maybe don't get up to that standard in a way.
Why? I mean,
well, because not everyone is gonna make it, of course. So when someone is like very tipped to be at the very very top, and then for different reasons it doesn't happen for them, they're immediately ostracized and they have to play in the lower leagues, and then they don't have the successful career they hope they would have, and it gets difficult for them.
Yeah. Do you feel that Argentinian fans are very critical of the players? Like in Italy, they demand the best from their players. Do you feel Argentina is as bad as Italy? Because I think Carlo Ancelotti or somebody said that, in Italy, you have to win every game. The pressure he felt there was compared to nothing else. So is it like that?
I think it depends on the team you support. There are some fans that are, of course, more demanding of their own players than others. So I would say Independiente fans, the team that I actually support, is
like Independiente.
It's they have a set of fans that are notoriously demanding. They have something they have a philosophy called paladar negro, which is black palate. Like they do not only expect to win every time, but they also expect to win in a specific way, because Independiente have been so influenced by the team from the 70s and the 80s, which was widely successful. They won 4 straight Copa Libertadores. They won 2 Intercontinental Cups, one of them against, the Liverpool team that won the Champions League in '84. And since then, they've gone on some awful teams, and fans have kept demanding this from their players, who are clearly not up to standard. And I think over the years and over the decades, become something of a toxic kind of culture in a way, in which you will also demand this from players. You will ask for the head of the manager every single time, which I think that actually happens to most teams. But especially in Independiente, they are, extremely demanding and extremely tough on players, and that creates something of a vicious circle, I think.
Okay. But so which are the other teams who want the ideal? Because I've heard River also want to win in a specific way. They don't want to win in a last minute penalty like Boca, but they want to win with excellence. So which are the teams who like to win controversially, and which are the teams who like to, Menotti versus Bilardo. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Menotti Bilardo comparison is a little bit tempered right now. I mean, you will have, of course, people who favor one over the other, but I think at the end of the day, the two managers won the World Cup, so you can't really argue with any of them. But in terms of teams, of course, I would say Boca have kind of gained this reputation of winning in whatever way possible, winning the Boca way, a lo Boca. It's something like their philosophy. They don't have teams who play a lot. They have teams with a lot of, talented players, but teams that are not really, shining through. They still grind and win games anyway. And then there's been other teams who actually have built themselves a culture of playing in a certain way and hiring managers who play a progressive style of football. One of them in particular is a very recent successful in the last few years, but have historically been really small. They're Defensa y Justicia. They've always been a team from the second and third division, but then they got promoted in 2014, and they've been in a really successful few years ever since. They won the Sudamericana with Hernan Crespo as manager a couple of years ago, and they always hire this kind of managers who press high, who try to keep possession, who try to win in this specific way. But that's from the part of the club. I mean, they built this project and they've started to play in this way, and that's how they've created this kind of philosophy within their own club.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask that Defense, so they play like the ideal football, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say exactly ideal, but they try to play in this progressive and possession based kind of manner. Yeah.
So also, and I wanted to ask about Gallardo. Why isn't Gallardo in Europe anymore? Why is he still in River? What's his aim, do you feel? Because I think he should come to Man United or some other big club, right? He's easily getting offers.
Look, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Sometimes I ask myself the same question. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Gallardo, he's had almost nothing left to prove at River anymore. I mean, he has won every single trophy that he can possibly win, maybe with the exception of the Club World Cup, which, in fairness, no South American team has won it since 2012, which means in itself it's something like an impossible task given the gap that's been created between Europe and South America. Yeah. But I don't know. So I think something that probably motivates Gallardo while at River is not just the fact that he has freedoms and levels of management within River and all of its structure that possibly will not get anywhere in the world ever, perhaps because of how he has been adored within River, but also the fact that he has been given an opportunity to keep, developing a crop of youth players who are looking really talented, not just Julian Alvarez, but also, you have in midfield players like Santiago Simón and Enzo Fernandez, who have been, called up to the national team last year in a surprise call-up in November, if I'm not mistaken. But also trying to, build another successful team for years to come, and set the foundations for his successor to then come. But even when you consider that, I would say that the jump, I think from Argentina to Europe in terms of management must be, must be something of a shock, because I mean, the gulf in quality between leagues in Europe, the 5 biggest leagues in Europe and South America is incredibly huge, not between the big teams and the rest. I think you can see that a little bit in Julian Alvarez, in the fact that when he plays in the league, of course, he can dominate defenders, because I mean, they have a different style of physicality and pressure. But when he faces international teams with Argentina, he could struggle a little more, because he's facing physical defenders with a lot of experience, and maybe he needs that more time in Europe to adapt and to improve.
So can we start?
Yeah, where was I?
So Julian Alvarez, he struggled. You said that, yeah. So he needs time to adapt to Europe, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel that at least Argentina and Brazil and all of South American countries, their advertisement is what is lacking, because what they have in terms of fans, in terms of passion, in terms of physicality can make up for what the European teams have, because they have everything except the culture is missing. And maybe I feel that the FAs don't put in enough effort, if I may be right.
Well, yes, no, because I think the thing is, I think that even when you have this kind of culture and the pressure from the fans and all that, you can't really win games with that, can you? I think at least for me, I think. But I mean, at least where things are right now, I think 20 or 15 years ago, a few South American teams could have really given Europeans a run for the money because of how the economy and how things were going in South America back then. But I think the gulf in investment and the gulf in the money involved and in the gulf in also the quality of coaching, I would say, has been so elevated exponentially in Europe in comparison to South America. That means that the gulf in quality and the gulf in development between both regions is almost insurmountable right now.
Yeah, maybe it
But
does
also
seem
because
insurmountable. Yeah.
are now wishing to go to Europe as soon as possible. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you totally. It
Cool.
seems unsurmountable. I was saying, yeah, because it's a
Yeah,
pretty give back.
but also because of that, but also because the players now are like looking for the first exit to Europe they can possibly find. They're not really motivated to keep playing in South America because of those economic conditions, because of those hardships, and because they also feel like in Europe, and this is actually true, they will learn stuff that they will probably never learn if they stay in South America. They will become better players in Europe. And you can see that. You can see that players that probably didn't make a big fuss in South America, like Rodrigo de Paul, are now one of the best midfielders in Europe.
My new favorite. Rodrigo de Paul. I mean, I feel that he is going to be monumental and key in this World Cup campaign because the way he supplies the ball to Messi.
The one player, he's the one player that if he doesn't play for Argentina, you will miss him sorely, like really bad. He's like the heart of the team, right?
He's the engine. He takes the ball.
Yeah.
He prevents the press. He dribbles through. He passes ahead, and he can also hunt down a player and hunt down the ball. He is all grit. He'd be the perfect Boca player.
Midfielder. Yeah.
Perfect Boca player.
Complete midfielder.
So, where do you feel the national team is going in terms of producing talents, and also in terms of if the FA is working enough on it? So, where do you think are new talents coming up in Argentina? I mean, is the future looking good for the national team as of now?
Actually, yeah. I think the work that has been put on by Scaloni and all of his staff, Roberto Ayala, Walter Samuel, Pablo Aymar, all players who have played in under the guidance of Jose Peckerman in different moments of their career in the under 17s, under 20s, and the senior side in the late 90s and early 2000s. They have been instilled with this culture of, trying to develop youth talent. They were developed as players, and now they're trying to develop the next generation of players now that they're in coaching roles. And I think you can really tell that, of course, Scaloni has made these kind of shock call-ups first last year with the local-based players, the Enzo Fernandez, Aaron Molinas at Boca, Thiago Almada at Vélez.
Molina? Nahuel Molina. I thought you were talking about Nahuel Molina.
That's a different Molina. That's a different Molinas.
Yeah.
Also, people like Alan Varela, of course, at Boca. He's tried to call up these young players, get them accustomed to training with the senior team, and getting to take pictures with Messi, but also try to get to know the squad and get to know Scaloni and how he works with them. He did this again in the last round of qualifiers with the Argentine players based in Europe, the likes of Garnacho and Nicolas Paz and the Carbonis and Geralnik, is trying to find these players also in scattered around Europe with Argentine families and trying to convince them to play for Argentina in relation to, Spain or Italy or Mexico. Is trying to, build the foundations of the squad for future years, something that has probably not been done since the days of Peckerman, as I said before, in the late 90s. I think that's really, really promising and encouraging, and something that's not very common in Argentina, to give this much attention to the youth.
Yeah,
And it gets me really, really, it makes me rest easy on the fact that
it's in good hands.
it has to be developed, but yeah, it's probably in good hands. And if those players can get minutes and get playing time in those huge clubs they play for, eventually they can add a lot of value to the national team, looking towards not just 2026 but also 2030.
34, yeah.
So
But
yeah.
I had two questions regarding this. One, you said Argentina didn't focus much on the youth, right? I thought it was the opposite, because the way I thought about Argentine culture was everyone played football on the grounds everywhere. The kids try out, in India we go to tuition classes. It's almost like a compulsory thing to go for studies to an extra class. I feel Argentina has a club culture which no other country has, right? Or is it only stuck at the amateur level and it doesn't?
Yeah, that's the thing. In Argentina, you will have a lot of kids playing on the streets, and I mean, the culture is right there. It's always been there, and it's something that's ubiquitous. You will see it everywhere across the streets. But for many, many years, at the very, very, very top of the game, you had almost no youth development. You could have a lot of young players excelling, but they were never really developed. Ever since the Peckerman project was almost finished in 2007 or 2008 with the team that won the under-20s World Cup in Canada. That's the last great team that we have in youth setup. The youth structure was almost completely dismantled in 2008 and 2009. That stint with Maradona as Argentina manager was disastrous in many ways, but one of them was the fact that he called up more than 110 different players, giving them almost no playing time, no coherent structure. The consequence of that is that for a decade, the results of the Argentine youth teams were completely horrendous. There were a lot of World Cups which we missed, or we were sent home in the first round. You could have a lot of great young players, the likes of Lautaro Martinez back then was also, and still is a great player, but it was also a great prospect. But he was not given enough chances within that youth setup. They weren't given a lot of importance. They would name managers with no experience in the youth teams, and with no without a lot of how can I say this? With a lot of experience in trying to work with young players. They were not given a lot of importance. So you could have a lot of players going through and promising players, but they had to leave to Europe if they wanted to develop. They couldn't do it in the national setup because there was none. I mean, I think the most damning example of how things were back then is the 2016 Olympics, which they were supposed to be managed by who was the senior national team manager back then, Gerardo Martino. But back then the AFA wanted Martino out because of the fact that he lost 2 consecutive finals against Chile. So they rid him of all they sent him to train with almost no equipment, with none of the teams based in Argentina. They didn't want the players to play at the Olympics. They were denied, some of the best players in the national setup. They couldn't play for Argentina because of the demands of the teams. So he was so fed up by this abandonment from the national team that he was forced to quit.
Yeah, let's continue.
There we are.
Totally, yeah. So
yeah, I was saying that maybe England are probably a team that has a lot of parallels with Argentina's process, but maybe in terms of the style of player, they're a little bit more underdeveloped, a little clunkier. They may struggle a little bit more.
They depend on luck a bit more. I feel England depend on a lot on luck.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, they have a lot of firepower, a lot of talent, but I think that talent is somewhat subdued, I would say, by the style of play that
Style
will be
of play,
played
yeah.
sometimes.
Southgate, yeah.
Exactly. So I think maybe they could struggle a little bit against Argentina. And on the other hand, the team that I think, I wouldn't say destroy, but I would give a real run for the money. For Argentina, I would say maybe Spain.
Oh,
I think
Spain.
Spain.
Yeah.
They really shocked me in the Euros. I thought at first, because of Luis Enriquez's squad, which had some real weird choices, they would struggle a little bit. But they were really brave. They really surprised me. They play really dangerous football, and Luis Enrique also is the kind of manager who has 100% trust in his players, and sometimes he could confront the media defending those players, and it strikes me as the kind of team that will go like for every game with so much confidence and so much personality that I think is a kind of rival that I would want to avoid.
Yeah. I feel France would be a great level, just like last time, because speed of the speed of Mbappe is pretty, tough to stop. Although our defense is pretty nice, Argentina's defense sometimes tends to make some errors, which might lead to some costly goals. So I feel France.
I think that's been a little bit curbed in the last years. I think
comparatively a lot.
The addition of Cristian Romero in that back line has been so important. So important. I mean, he's a player who's still only like 23, 24 years old, but he's so composed and so
mature,
calm, but at the same time so intense as well. I mean, he's even good with the ball, which is something that Argentine defenses have been lacking so much. He's made Nicolas Otamendi a better player, which I thought it couldn't be possible.
So I know he downgraded from Man City to Lisbon. Everybody thought he's going to retire, but he's really crucial in the team now.
I mean, in all honesty, I would still want Lisandro Martinez, the Ajax centre back, to actually get into that starting 11, because I really rate his positioning and of course his skills with the ball, and the way he creates passes from deep as well. I think he's really good as a defender, and I think he would probably give us a little bit more of a chance against big European opponents if he played, even if he's a lot smaller than Otamendi, but he's a lot faster, and of course, as I said before, he can play the ball from the back. But he's still, rate, and I have to recognize how much Otamendi has improved. I didn't really rate him before that. I thought his time with the national team was probably over, and he really shocked me. He had a great performance in that final against Brazil.
I know the way he picked up Neymar and the way he wanted to fight. There was in 2018 with Mercado, Rojo, and Otamendi. They weren't great at all.
Oh.
But here they were excellent. Also, whom do you prefer in left back, right back, and second keeper? Emi Martinez has taken the first position, no doubts. But whom do you think deserve the second place? And in left back and right back, whom do you think should play? Tagliafico or Acuna, Molina?
I think, unfortunately for me at least, because Tagliafico is not an Independiente youth product, but he actually broke out at Independiente. He won a title with Independiente, the Copa Sudamericana. He was a captain. He was really important. And I really wanted him to nail down that starting spot in Argentina. But I think that in the left of defense, he was probably never really playing to the highest of his capacities. And I think that Marcos Acuna has done a much better job, and he's taking the opportunity with both hands. So I think I would favor Acuna whenever he's healthy. I think he starts every time. And on the right, I think it's a little bit more contested, but I think Scaloni has some more trust in Nahuel Molina Lucero ahead of Gonzalo Montiel, who I think Montiel has probably a higher ceiling than Molina, but I think right now Molina seems to be the player who is the most helpful in attack, but in defense as well. He tracks back good. Even if Montiel had a great performance in the final, I think at this moment in time, Molina seems to be the one favored, and I trust Scaloni with his decisions right now, so I think I will go with Molina.
And in the midfield, you like Lo Celso, Paredes. Would you like Paredes? And of course,
Yeah, I
Depau.
think the midfield is like really established right now. It's Paredes, Lo Celso, and De Paul. Nobody else. And I think it's a midfield that's worked wonders for Argentina. The fact that I can name a midfield by heart is a lot.
It's fixed for the first time, you know, and they're
considering what we've had and I think it's a midfield. Yeah, and it's a midfield three that has a real connection and understanding, and also favors a lot the front three. So I think it's I wouldn't mess that formula. Let's put that formula. I think they complement each other really well, and I would like for them to keep playing in that same way.
Whom would you want as forwards? Messi is obviously, you can't like come on how can you argue? But do you want Di Maria to come as a sub, or do you want him from the start? Lautaro or Gonzalez? I think Lautaro is a better option, but whom would you prefer?
I think that if Di Maria is healthy, if Di Maria is match fit, he starts. Also it's another player that I probably thought after 2018 that it was probably time for him to focus on his club career, and then he's completely changed my mind. He's risen up as such an important and clutch player as well. You know, he's come up with some incredible goals in qualifying, not just the one in the final of the Copa America, but also he's got a banger against Uruguay, against Colombia, and now against Venezuela. I don't know if you've seen his chip against Venezuela.
The 4-0 one you're talking about.
Yeah, the 3-0. The 3-0. A few days ago, which was incredible. I think he starts and he's on the right. I think his plays a lot better than when he used to play on the left. He can cut inside with his left foot and associate with Messi or shoot. He can do a lot of things from the right, a lot more than he can do from the left. Of course, Messi's irreplaceable. He starts in the middle.
Yeah.
And Lautaro, the highest score under Lionel Scaloni as manager, which I think it shows how important he is for this team.
Yeah, in the system, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also irreplaceable.
I don't know. I thought Ocampos would be really good, but he hasn't got much playing time. He hasn't proved himself in the Copa.
I think but I think it's the fact that there's so much competition in those places. You know, Nico Gonzalez is also someone who could start games. Maybe if Di Maria is not much fit, the first man I think of, you know, to start on the left is probably Nico Gonzalez.
Yeah,
the Fiorentina.
But I feel he's more of a defensive. You know, he runs a lot, he presses a lot, which is what our attack needs.
Yeah,
but he's not clinical in the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a striker. It's not a striker. I mean, I think when you play him, you also need to play someone like Lautaro Martinez for him to finish those kind of chances. But
totally,
I think his contributions to build up and to creating that sort of attacking opportunities, I think it greatly outweighs his luck in front of goal. I think so. I think it's also a really, really important players. But then you also have players like the two Correas and Papu Gomez. You know, there's Alexis McAllister in midfield. There's so much competition right now.
Yeah, Angel Correa. I mean, I'd really love to see him play. He's the cojones player. You know, he's from Atletico under Simeone. He's on the right wing. He just presses. He fights for the ball. He's unstoppable.
Yeah. He's a great player to come from the bench, because I mean, when there's 70 minutes played, you will have some tired legs in the opposition, and for someone to run them ragged in those final 20 minutes like Angel Correa, he will be crucial for that. And I really like the fact that he can accept that kind of probably secondary role, because that's what he's always been doing under Simeone. He's been really, really patient and really diligent and really hardworking, and he can take that kind of mentality, the fact that he can contribute from his position, and I really appreciate that. Yeah.
I think it's really common in especially Argentina and Brazil to have one center who is the best player in the world nearly, and all the others who sacrifice their lives for that player. It happened with El Diego, it happened with Pele, it's probably happening with Neymar, I guess.
Yeah,
And of
Pele
course,
also had teammates who were all incredibly talented as well. Like
Garrincha, yeah.
Garrincha played Pele as well. So yeah,
totally. But they also, I mean, there is one player who's the focus of everything, and it seems to be working out in the Copa at least. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I have one last question for you, and let's wrap up after that. First of all, really love talking to you. Which was your favorite match which you watched in a stadium live in Argentina, and which would you recommend? Let's say.
I think well, I always have this one answer to that question, which is in 2017, me as an Independiente fan was probably the happiest year I've ever lived as a fan, as a football fan, because Independiente back then were playing some of the best football in Argentina under manager Ariel Holland. It's a team that eventually went on to win the Copa Sudamericana, which is like the Europa League.
Yeah, I know.
They played, they won against a really, really strong Flamengo side, which had the likes of, Juan and Diego and Vinicius Jr. and Lucas Paquetá in that team. Some real cross-generational Brazilian talent right there. But I think that campaign kick-started in one specific game in the round of 16 of that competition against a team from Argentina, actually, Atlético Tucumán. They play like really up north. The first leg, Independiente were, I think, totally outplayed by Atlético Tucumán back in the north. And we had to play the second leg at Independiente Stadium in Avellaneda. I went to that game, and it was a really, really tense game because, to give you some context, in the previous league campaign, Independiente had to beat Lanús in the final match day to qualify for the Libertadores for the first time since 2011. That's how bad things are for Independiente. And they could only muster a 1-1 draw, and they had to play the Sudamericana. So Independiente were in this mentality that, okay, we really need to win the Sudamericana if we want to have a shot at the Libertadores next year. So this game, after losing 1-0, the first leg was incredibly tense. So in the first half, we go 1-0 up with a great goal from a striker called Leandro Fernandez, with a great start with left foot really curled in. And then right after that, the captain, which was Tagliafico back then, was sent off.
Oh my God, 10 men.
Yeah, we got sent off in the first half. And then in the second, in the media, right now the tie is completely even. We would head into extra time as things were, but they were really, really tense. Things were really, really tense, and in the media we want to avoid going into extra time as much as they could. So with 10 men, you have to still go for it, but also be exposed to playing with 10 men and everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
So at one point in the second half, Independiente conceded a penalty against Atlético Tucumán.
Oh, and that goal means death because away goals.
Yeah, the Independiente would have been dead with that goal. So after take it goes at Atlético Tucumán's star man back then, and one of the more charismatic players in all of Argentine football, Luis Miguel Pulga Rodríguez. So he shoots, he scores, and everything is total and despair in that stadium. Yeah. But then he has to retake the penalty. He has to retake the penalty because there was some player from Atlético Tucumán who actually invaded the box. So he takes it again, and the penalty is saved by Martín Campaña. So with this momentum, Independiente tried to catch the momentum and really go for it. And in the 83rd minute, a long shot from Martín Benítez goes right into the top corner. The stadium goes completely bonkers.
Rebirth, it must be like rebirth after death.
Exactly. So it was absolutely incredible. One of the more exciting and nail-biting games I've ever seen. And right then, when the final whistle came, when the final whistle came, Independiente won the game. We advanced through the quarterfinals, but back then we knew that there was something special within this team, that if they could come back from that, we could go on to achieve great things. I mean, there was total joy in those stands. We ended up singing. We kept singing by the time we left the stadium, all of us at once. And we knew back then that we could win this, and then we did. So,
Wow. Yeah.
so that was incredible. That was really, really amazing. And I would even say that things were never that happy ever since. Independiente right now are in a total and absolute crisis in football terms, in economic terms. The team has been completely ravished, and now it's the current squad is probably some of the worst squad I've ever seen in my life as an Independiente fan.
Oh, oh,
So yeah, I mean, things are really, really tough ever since, but I really, really cherish that memory.
wow, great. Football just unites us together
I
in
really
those
do.
ways, and it's excellent. One of my, it's not memories you can say, but one of the things I was happiest about in football is, I think it was India under 21, and they beat Argentina 2-1, I feel.
Wow,
And that was it. Yeah,
really?
under 21 or under 18, I feel. Which was, I first thought that I read the scoreline wrong or something when Anwar Ali, the next starlet from our country, he scored a free kick which went in like beautifully. And it
Wow.
was people were 5,000, 10,000 people were watching that game online because we couldn't watch it through on YouTube. It was 5:30 in the morning or something, and people are watching that game. That was such a beautiful moment.
Wow.
Anyway, here's to more good moments, and here's to winning Copa Mundial.
Yeah, hopefully, man. Hopefully.
Anyway, had great fun interviewing you. Had a lot of fun talking to you, and it never hurts to talk about La Joga Bonito. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot for racing this interview.
Well, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah.